Mr. Michael Axel from the East Coast Roller Group. Mike, take it away.
All right, thanks everybody. We're going to do the Ladies of Elm Street panel. Let's first bring up Miss Heather Langenkamp. Next up, Amanda Wyss. Brooke Theiss. And Lisa Wilcox. Alrighty, well, thank you for taking some time out and talking with us today. Let's start off with an easy question. Let's just go down the line. How did you guys get involved in your respective films?
Hello? You guys speak? No. Hello? Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, like auditioning kind of thing? Yeah. Well, gosh, 1988, did have a manager and agent, and they submitted me for the role of Alice, but they would not audition me. But I had, the 80s makeup and the virgin blonde hair and all of this, I did more cheerleader roles and that sort of thing. So they wouldn't audition me. But about a month later, I finally got to audition, and Annette Benson, who cast Nightmare 4, and she also cast several of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, tells me the story that they actually... Hello? There's a ghost in my microphone. Okay, it's a poltergeist. Anyway, so about a month goes by and I get a call, I got an audition, and Annette Benson said that what happened is that they seriously auditioned like hundreds of actresses for the role of Alice. They couldn't find her, so they went through the reject pile, which I proudly stood in, and I had an opportunity to audition for Alice. And I had one callback, and I went like no makeup and dirty hair, and I wore my worst color is pale yellow. So if you ever want to buy me clothes, just make sure it's not pale yellow. And auditioned, and then I had a callback on a Friday. I got married on that Sunday. Yes, it was a planned wedding with 125 people. You were at the callback, and I went, oh, Rennie likes blondes. A large engagement ring, yes.
She looks like she's 12, and I'm sitting next to her, and I'm like, holy mother of God. I was like, are you married? She's like, I'm getting married.
In 2 days. Yeah. Anyway, so I'm on my honeymoon, and I got a call that I had gotten the role of Alice. So there you go, and I had to leave. Thank you, and I had to leave my honeymoon early. 5 days in out of the 10. My now ex-husband was not happy about that. I'm like, dude, this is how the industry works. Okay, so anyway, he was in the industry. That's my story. I've taken that all the time.
My story's not nearly as good.
Hello?
Okay. So yeah, my story's not nearly as good. It's the same thing. You have an agent and you're like, oh please, just like an audition would be fabulous. So you finally got one, and I remember auditioning. And I do remember the callback specifically because I remember Remy Harlan, who was really up and coming and quite progressive. Remember he filmed us?
Yeah.
And I was like, callback, and we were in the room, and he was on a handheld, and he was like, we were doing the scene, and he was filming us, and I just thought, this is really different, because that doesn't happen. I mean, you might be put on a little videotape, but he had like a big...
Yeah, he was doing it, man.
He was doing it, and I was like, wow.
Was Tuesday in the room with you?
I think she might have been.
I read with Tuesday.
I just remember you because of your ring.
The what? The what? The scene with we have matching luggage scene.
Yes. Okay.
She was first cast because they needed to replace Patricia Arquette. So Tuesday was actually cast first. Hi. Okay. Sorry. Okay.
Right. Yeah. So I remember that, and then when I did get the part, I specifically also remember Tuesday had blonde hair, Lisa had blonde hair, and I had blonde hair. And so they kind of had to sit us down and say, hey, look, we got to dye your hair. And I was like, I don't think I can dye my hair because I'm on the show, and I got to go back, and I like my, trademark is my hair. It's big puffy hair, the 80s. So I did a wig, you dyed your hair, and Tuesday stayed a blonde. So.
Let's see. I think we all read for Nancy, right? Was it the initial? The initial audition was all the girls read for Nancy, and then at the callback, you and I read together.
Yeah, like this.
Exactly. We sat down like this, and we
on a couch.
on the couch, and we read, and I think we improv. I don't even remember. Wes put us together,
We went
and
like this.
she did that, and that went into the movie.
That's why I got the part.
She-
I think I made the glove come alive for Wes.
You totally did. And so she did many things in the audition that ended up in the film. You did with all kinds of cool things, and then
The cool thing about the audition was that Wes told us we had the part there.
in the room, like that never happened. I think that he had decided it was us probably from the initial auditions, because there were other people still in the waiting room.
I think so.
Yeah, and we were just like,
We were walking out.
like,
Don't worry. No, I think we were last.
yeah, we
I
probably were
don't
last.
think they did that.
I don't
They
know.
weren't that.
They weren't that mean.
They weren't that.
But so yeah, but they pulled us in the room, and it was really
This was
really cool.
before horror was very much of a big deal, so it was really low down.
Yeah.
The audition, the office was in the worst area of Hollywood.
Oh, that's right.
And,
It was some nasty little
like-
room.
Really sketchy drugged addicts outside. And I wished I remember thinking, I had a really bad car. I had a terrible little beat up car that I was even afraid of getting stolen. And I remember thinking, I wish I had the club. Because they had just come out the club.
Oh,
I'm like,
God.
why did I buy the club? So I can audition for Nightmare on Elm Street.
I clubbed my car
See,
when we did the
yeah.
audition. I loved my
You
club.
had way more money than I did.
Yeah, I could afford the club.
Amanda, had been in so many things. Like, she was a veteran, and she taught me so much.
Oh my God, we had so much fun on the set. We would sit in between takes and do the crossword puzzle. Remember that on the steps of your dressing room?
Yeah.
We would just do that between every take, covered in blood and all weird looking. And we would just sit there and do the crossword puzzle.
Yeah, we did a lot of
That was super fun.
So on the first one, we all know Wes is a legend. Talk about working with him. What was it like to see him behind the scenes and how his mind worked?
Well, let's see. I did work with Wes a lot. Now that we were just celebrating the year anniversary of his death this last weekend.
Resting.
I know it's not going to go on.
Hello. I think the thing I took away from Wes, first of all, he's an incredibly funny person. So I think he felt uncomfortable having relationships with a lot of people. I mean, he was a distant person. And the way that he broke through that was through jokes and humor and playing practical jokes, or just trying to get you, double entendres and, funny things to say all the time. And now that I've been talking to a lot of people about him, he was also kind of a wild man, And my mother and father-in-law especially spent a lot of time with Wes, and he was wild, and he had wild parties. He loved being around wild people, and so this dichotomy that everyone thinks that he's this kind of straight-laced and very intellectual man isn't actually really like the whole picture, because the more I talk to people, I'm like, he did what? I'm like, he was crazy. And my husband spent a lot of time in Haiti and the Dominican Republic with him, and it was just a blast all the time. And Marianne Madalena, the producer that he worked with for over like 20 movies, just confirmed with me, like, every night was fun. That was part of his whole way of working, was to make people relax, making sure they could give their best performance. And so, that's a part of Wes that I wish I had actually enjoyed a little bit more, because with me, he was always very serious, always very, I can't really describe the relationship, but I never knew that side of him, and I've learned a lot about it in the last year.
Amanda, talk about filming your character's destiny.
let's see. I think most of you probably know so much about this. There was a small bedroom built on basically like a rotisserie spit in a huge soundstage, and there was grips literally like turned a crank, and the room went around, and everything was nailed down and glued down, and we shot it very slowly and methodically because there was kind of only one take in each increment, because once the blood was in, you couldn't really go back and redo things. And so it was challenging and fun and different, because obviously being in this room that went around, and it was based on the famous American in Paris, I think, the Fred Astaire, what was it,
Gene Kelly.
Gene Kelly dance sequence with the room that spins around. Am I on Fred Astaire? I'm not sure. And so it was very exciting. It was a little tedious. I got very disoriented and was like, oh my God, I didn't handle it very well, I have to say. Like, I wish I could say like it was amazing and I was such a champ, but I kind of like freaked out halfway through. But we finished it, and it was grueling to shoot, and I think part of why that scene is so horrific is it goes on forever. And you're watching a 14-year-old girl get murdered for like 20 minutes. But it was actually really difficult to film, and I think because there's no it was all practical effects, you can feel that. I think it adds to some of the, emotional response that people have to that scene, because it was actually, there's no CGI, it was just us and some people throwing blood through a window. And
But I think, don't you think it's I think it's such a famous scene, and it's the most famous death scene in my mind, because it showed Wes in a kind of a violence and a depravity that I think is really his mark with Last House on the Left and his early films. It's kind of like the one scene that kind of gets transformed into this Nightmare on Elm Street, which is a totally different kind of movie. But that scene to me always stands apart. Like, we just went somewhere really dark.
Yeah, I agree.
The other ones, like even Rod getting hung in the prison and of course Glenn dying in the bed, there was kind of lightheartedness to it. Like, I don't know, there was just some, they didn't have that depth.
Super over the top in a way.
Yeah, it wasn't like that scene.
It's really.
It was kind of violence too.
Yeah, it was really,
I scared.
Legitimately scary.
Yeah, I so remember watching Nurse One, the very lovely one. I was with my best friend, and we watched that whole scene.
Right, with your knees gleefully up around your ears. Yeah.
And I know, how do you watch horror movies? What's your body?
Oh, yes.
I like this.
I know mine. I'm like, yes.
Oh. I am literally like this.
Really cool.
Yeah. I do one hand over my ear and one over my eye, so I can diminish all the frightening coming at me. And if I can't get it, I get my leg up through here, and I'm like watched with my bad eye. I don't actually see the whole thing. I have many ways, but it's usually contorted. I'm a lot of fun. And remember that we went and saw, was it Friday the 13th, and I screamed so much? Heather goes, I am never sitting next to you at a horror movie again.
She's scared of everything.
I'll
Like,
sit next to
the
you.
creaking of the door, it's just a lead up to the real thing, and Mandy's screaming at that.
I went to the premiere of Heather's movie Home. And I screamed through the whole thing. And I can hear you screaming the whole time. I'm like, who the hell is this chick screaming and ruining the movie? I was like hysterical. I was just reminded why I don't go to the movies with you.
So, Brooke, your character also had a memorable death. Talk about some of the makeup that you went through with that.
Well, first of all, I watch my scary movies, so through peeky hole. I watch the entire movie, and I make my peeky hole so I can only see the person's face, so I can't see anything. And I'm like, I'm fine, I'm good, but okay. And my husband looks over and goes, oh my god, holy cow. So I just happened to get really lucky and have a crazy death. I had nothing to do with that. So my whole process of beginning to end, I worked with an amazing makeup artist named Screaming Man George. Crazy little Asian, 4 feet tall with red and purple and orange hair, and he just laughed at everything. And he just, I'd be like, I'm stuck. He'd go, everything was funny. I'm like, this is not funny.
Yeah, he had that laugh.
Oh, he did. He had that laugh.
It was like, wow, like out of a horror film.
I know, right? It's so contagious, and he was lovely. But mine took about 3 weeks. I had a lot of body casts and a lot of molds to do. A lot of people don't know in the very end when I get crushed and they show the reveal of the 2 cockroaches. I'm in one of the cockroaches, the costume. And they had like huge cables running behind my back, and they were working the head, but I was working the whole body. So, and if you look really close, you can see I had gloved, like latex gloves on, and they were all airbrushed to look like kind of like the shell color. So they were, but you can kind of see them, which is kind of funny. But it was fascinating. It was really fun. It was really tedious. It was really hard, but I had a blast. I had so much fun. So that's my story.
Those are awesome.
Sticking to it.
So, Nancy and Lisa, you obviously played Heather, Nancy. You see what I did there? You played empowered female roles in a horror film. Talk about that when normally in the 80s, other than Jamie Lee Curtis, there were, females were usually fodder for the bad guys, but you guys were really empowered. Talk about, as an actress, how you were able to take on that role.
Yeah, I mean, it's a good question because, yes, normally in the horror films and, not only just horror films, but other films, the women are not empowered. And if we're talking about in the genre, yeah, you're just slashed. So it was a fantastic time to see sort of a turning of the tide, as it were, in the late 80s. And Women's Lib actually finally hit in the late 80s, and the opportunity to play a role with such a character arc as well, from Daydreamer to Kick-Ass, and actually survived Freddy twice. It was phenomenal, and it's a very interesting thing too that over the years, even doing conventions, it used to be all mostly men that would come up to my table, but now I would say 30% are all female, and you guys expressed to me, and I'm sure they do to all of us, to you guys too. It's like, the impact of not being killed, standing up to Freddy and surviving. Had some impact in your life, which is awesome. So today's films, still seeing a lot of women getting thrashed and slashed and stuff in horror, but I think it was definitely a beginning of the train, So what do you have to say, Heather?
I agree with everything you said, but what I think is cool lately, what I've noticed is I think our character is actually kind of transcending the gender role, though. I mean, I now really talk to almost as many men as women who say that, Nancy and Alex were actually just role models. It's like, and I think that it's progress, because even if you're called a strong woman character, you're still being you're being divided. You're being called that woman character. To me, it just seems to indicate something lesser. I don't know. But I like to just kind of revel in the fact that we were just strong, kick-ass characters, and that a lot of people are really identifying and seeing young men and boys and young girls both feel like they can relate to what we put up there on the screen. To me, I feel really, really proud of that. And it's just really hard to it's hard to believe that this little stroke of luck that seemed so random, and actually something that I wasn't going to be particularly, thinking about in my 50s, is now one of the most important aspects of my life. So that's the thing that I think gets me the most, and is how important horror has become in our society for everybody.
Pop culture and all of that.
Yeah.
But I think our characters too were relatable. I know with Alice, it was like We've all had that time when we're a daydreamer, when we are within ourselves, you know. But then at some time in your life, you have to reveal, and it's like peeling an onion as you mature and find that strength within you. So anyway, I love hearing all of your stories from your personal lives too. It's awesome. So, I keep saying awesome. I'm really not from the beach.
Yeah, I say awesome. Why am I saying it too? Awesome.
You live at the beach, so you can say awesome. I can't.
So we've seen a progression of Freddy from the original to your films, adding more and more comedy to sort of what Robert did with the character. Talk a little bit about what you think adding comedy to such a dark character, and how much of that was Robert being able to do what he was able to do.
I think what I was telling a young pair of filmmakers earlier today is Wes knew that you couldn't just have everyone on the edge of their seat the whole time. There's no way the human body can kind of suffer that for an hour and a half. And when you laugh, you fully relax after you've laughed, right? You kind of like take that deep breath, and that's what Wes knew about the rhythm of making horror, is that you have to have these little things that get you on the edge of your seat, and you have to laugh and let it all go and let the air out of the balloon, and then you have the really scary thing. And this is completely predictable formula that Wes uses, and you can almost map it on a chart. And it's absolutely necessary with horror. If anything, a horror movie that doesn't have an element of humor here and there is not going to ever scare you as much as a movie that does have that.
It's like laughing takes you off guard. It takes you
Right.
off guard, and then the kill comes in. You know what I mean? So it's even more startling.
And I mean, so many of the situations are just so ridiculous. I mean, and that we need to laugh, and even at death, there's like some aspects of death that, you know, it's important to learn to laugh at death. And I do think that it sounds macabre, but it's something that human beings kind of have to deal with. Like, how are we going to face death? Well, maybe face it with a laugh. You know, maybe
Right.
that's the best thing.
No, right, we'll laugh at, yeah. And also I think the progression though, from part of your point was the progression from Nightmare 1, 2, 3, and 4. Now 4, can you hear me? Yeah, is it working?
I know.
But in 4, I mean, when you think about it, generally horror films are generally dark. Oh, there, okay. Oh, scared myself. You know, the lighting is dark and moody and this and that. Now, going into Nightmare 4, I mean, we've got Freddy on the friggin' beach, okay, putting on Ray-Bans. So we're really going out there, right? And oftentimes we also refer to Nightmare 4 as like the MTV part, you know, the MTV version of A Nightmare on Elm Street. I mean, the amazing music and the truly out-of-the-box jokes and stuff that Freddy's character expresses. Anyway.
I've spoken with a lot of guys that have portrayed Jason, and they never really liked to talk to the actors or actresses that they were going to murder and things like that. How was Robert Englund behind the scenes?
You met Robert.
He talks your ear off.
Yes, he does. And from everything from, remember he was redoing his bathroom and we were talking about grout colors and this, and then we'll go off and talk about, you know, some obscure film, and you know, or talk about an experience with some amazing actor that he worked with or auditioned. He's such a raconteur. It's amazing. So no, he was like, I mean, I think we're all saying yes, very personable.
I was going to say too, that whole thing about it's make believe, it's acting. So like not talking to the actors is maybe good for take one, but the thing is, it takes many takes. So when people are like, I don't want to see you. I just did a horror film where the young actress said, I don't want to see you before we do the scene. I want an organic response, to which David Naughton said, what are you going to do for take two, my dear? And she promptly skulked away because it's make believe. Go to school, learn how to do it. It's a craft of being surprised. So, not wanting to see your actors, it's self-indulgent and it doesn't assist the process in any way of making a film. I just want to make that clear to any young filmmakers out there. It's technique. It's having tools in your toolbox. It's a skill. And it has nothing to do with being really surprised or because if you can't get your actor to have an organic response, you're either not able to direct them properly or you've cast the wrong person. It has nothing to do with, we're gonna, it's not a snuff film, it's show business, it's so I'm sorry, I sound so I just find that stuff such nonsense. It's nonsense.
I know, I've heard Robert talk about this before, and he really nailed this on the head and talked about, I know, it's like, wow. He talked about how he really felt that he was, more the veteran actor on the set, and these young people, because we were all quite young and newbies, and he would really take us under his wing, and he really did that. And when you feel safe and when you feel loved, you really do better work. And he did that. He did that for all of us, and he took care of us, and he was very nurturing. And to have somebody like that was very approachable and not scary, because we knew the films, like not one, but by the time we got to 4, Robert, that's ready, and then he's just this warm, lovely human being, and you're like, wow, I feel very safe to do what we're doing.
Yeah. I mean, and he interacts with all of his victims in a lot of a different way than Jason and, interacts with his victims too. And that difference, that might work for them, but maybe because they don't do a lot of give and take, it's like just up here.
One final question from me, and then we'll take some audience questions. Heather and Brooke, you have another connection, both working on just the 10 of us. Talk a little bit about working together on that series, and then we'll take a couple questions from the audience.
Well, I mean, I know I speak for Heather, or I don't speak for Heather, but we were truly a family, and we still are a family. Deborah Harmon, one of my best friends, Joanne Willette, still talk to Bill Kirkenbauer. So when we did that show, and it was a very, talk about organic, when we got to set on day 1, it was like we had known each other forever. Yeah, and it was just something that for me is extremely near and dear to my heart, and I walked away from that series, especially with Deborah Harmon, so much growth and really knowing how to be a professional and knowing even how to, Deborah would always say, we treat our guest stars like they're our family, because again, when you nurture.
That to heart by marrying one of
I really like him. No, I thought you did. But she did. She said they are our family, and if you bring them in and you make them feel loved and comfortable, they do their best work, and I guarantee you will be on their series one day, and they will treat you the same. And that came true
Or
so many times.
under the same roof with them.
That's right. Yeah, exactly right.
I have 2 kids later. I'll talk out of school since Brooke is here, but we would have a reading Monday morning of the script, and it was usually pretty good. I mean, it was usually funny, and there were lots of jokes, and you learn quickly how to get the rhythm of the jokes, and it's very fun and very hard. And I'm reading, and I'm looking over at Brookie, and she's just memorized the whole script. Damn. And I finally and it made me look bad, frankly. That's why I cared. Because she would have it all perfectly timed in her brain and memorized on Monday morning at 9 a.m. And I'm like, Brookie, what's your secret? She's like, I just really don't like reading off the page, Heather. I stumble, and then I feel like I'm making a fool of myself, so I just make sure to just have it all memorized on Sunday night. It's everyone was such a good actor on the show. And Brookie and then Joanne Willette, they all were so versatile, and they could do anything. And Joanne, who I'm sorry isn't with us, she should be, she can mimic anybody. And if you ever have the chance to see the Just the 10 of Us gag reels, Joanne imitates all of us. And it is perfect. And the producers and everybody, it's one of the funniest clips you'll ever see. And, Bill Kirkenbauer was such a nice man. And our producers were kind of brutal. They were the only ones who were hard asses. But they were hardcore producers, Brutal producer? Never
I know.
heard of such a thing.
But on the laugh track,
So they weren't expecting this family, and we were like, hey, we're for each other.
yeah.
I have to mention something, since you brought up Joanne, if I may, really quickly.
Joanne and I went to UCLA together, and we actually shared a mailbox because Willette and Wilcox. And then, of course, Joanne was in Nightmare 2 as the mean cheerleader. So I just had to bring, like, all this sort of serendipity, weird serendipity.
And I wanted to say I memorized everything because I have severe dyslexia. And I can't read. So, you can do anything you want, but that's what I do.
That's a good lesson for any actor out there. Like, nothing should be your barrier to doing, and that could be used as a crutch or an excuse for so many situations. Oh, but no, she just would take the bull by the horns, and she came around it from this other way. It was really awesome, and I super admired it.
All right, we have time for a couple questions.
This is for Brooke and Lisa. Could you please tell some of your favorite stories working with Remy Harlan, and please do your best impression of his accent?
I wish Tuesday night was here because she does the best impression of Remy Harlan. We are doing a murder. Get in your positions. I sound more Bulgarian, I think, but I'm trying. Rennie was just cool. He was great. I think my favorite story is that he was very personable with us actors. And I remember in the Crave Inn, yes, the Crave Inn, and I'm working on it. I'm trying to find some business as an actor where you're performers. You don't just stand and do lines like you might be doing something. I'm in a restaurant. I'm a waitress. So what am I doing? So I decided to be polishing some silverware. So I'm polishing forks, right? And then I noticed there's this amazing shadow happening as I'm polishing these forks. And I'm like, Rennie, look. And he's like, brilliant. And he says, get the knives. So I'm like, oh, right. So I get the knives, and then, of course, you have, and it's in the movie, there's this quick shot of the knives, the shadow of the knives, of course, the foreshadow of Freddy Krueger's glove. So anyway, so that's my story with Rennie.
Again, for some reason, I've just worked with the most amazing, gentle people, and Remy Harlan, in my opinion, was one of them. He, when we all got cast, he invited us over to the producer's house, or one of the producer's house, because he lived in some bedroom on some floor.
I was in Hawaii on my honeymoon.
Oh yeah, okay. That's it. So he had us all get together before the movie, and we hung out as friends, and we became friends. And that's when we came for our 20th year reunion. It was kind of it was truly a reunion of friends, and we all clicked. And that was really Rennie, again, being very progressive and bringing us all together. And before we started the movie, we were already a clique. Yeah, so that's one of my favorite things. And I've seen him recently, and he's just fabulous. It was so great to see him. The hotel.
Hello, ladies. My question is actually for the whole panel. Lisa, you were in an episode of Star Trek, and Heather was in Star Trek, and I read from the Never Sip Again book by Tommy Hudson, shameless plug, that that you auditioned for my favorite comedies, which is Night of the Comet. You were going to be Reg originally, and I love that movie to pieces. And my question is, if you could be in any other genre that isn't horror, what would it be?
That is so easy for me to answer.
I know.
I would be in a BBC production of Wuthering Heights, wearing a corset and what do you call those movies though? Romantic kind of
Harlequin romance?
Yeah, like the Harlequin. No, but they're not that cheesy. Like a Downton Abbey, but even farther back in history, 1830s. Yeah, Pride and Prejudice, exactly. That genre. That's the one I want to be in.
I would like to be in sci-fi, straight up, all the time, with vampires, and that would be it.
I would be doing musical theater all the time, dancing, singing.
I want to be in a sitcom. I want to be a regular in a sitcom. I love sitcoms. You rehearse, you have your table read on a Monday, You're done at 5, you get to rehearse, and they change the lines, and the network comes down and gives notes, and you change, and this, and then Friday is showtime with a live audience and all of that. So that is where I want to be. Yes.
That's my second choice.
But I'm a theater actor, and I love having an audience. There's nothing like that energy, so.
Awesome.
Hey, what's going on, ladies? I'm Joey Click. I'm the co-editor of 1428elm.com. Awesome. We cover all horror, but we also really focus on, we love the series that we're named after. Okay, cool. Now I'm about to reach my 30s. I was born in '87. I wasn't really around for the '80s, the Freddy mania, if you will, how impactful that was. Can the ladies to my right talk about what it was like to start that and what it eventually became? And can the ladies on my left talk about what it was like to be enthralled in such a popular series and to carry it further, because Part 4 is a very underrated movie in my opinion.
I'm holding the mic, so I guess I have to start. Yeah, I had seen Nightmare 1. I was a big fan. I've been a fan of horror films forever, and novels and books. The first novel I ever read was Dracula in like 4th grade. So, and I would, out of the library, it was ghost stories and all of this, So I was thrilled, to finally get the opportunity to audition for 4. And yes, the series was and I had seen Nightmare 3. I loved the Dream Warriors too. I just thought the kills in that were just so evil. Oh my gosh. So I was a huge fan. So I was so excited to be, become part of the series. Again, though, reflecting on what Heather said too, I had no idea that almost 30 years later, the impact that it would have on my life as well. So yeah, I think that was kind of answering the question for the ladies on the left. So, but interesting enough too, Nightmare 4, it was maybe underrated, perhaps, I don't know, but it did phenomenal at the box office. It did like $50 million at the box office. So Rodney Eastman and I argue all the time whether 3 or 4 made more money at the box office. I love Rodney, it's fun.
I would like to say that Lisa is the only person who's never died. So we need to do, I don't know, what would it be, 10 now? Nightmare 10, Nightmare 9, I don't know if you add them all up. We need to, Lisa, come on. You're Lisa lives. Alice lives.
Oh, I have it pinned
Yes,
down.
yes, Alice lives, and she does. I don't know if we can start like some kind of, Facebook page to try to get.
To get me killed?
No, to get you.
Join the club.
And I never heard of Nightmare. I auditioned.
No way, really? What? Heather, get started.
Yeah, I had never heard of Nightmare on Elm Street when I auditioned either. When you're in the time, you don't think that it's special. You always think don't you remember the 60s was so cool when we were in the 80s, we wanted to have lived in the 60s and maybe the 70s, but in the 80s it was, I don't know, I didn't love the hair, I didn't love the shoulder pads, I didn't love, the neon colors, like the flash dance outfits, I just didn't jive with the 80s very well, and then to be on a sitcom, I had no idea we would be like the last of a dying breed of sitcom that really doesn't exist today. And that wholesome family show that you can watch on Friday night with your kids, doesn't really exist on network TV anyway. So you just don't know. And now, in retrospect, it looks like all those glory days, right? but at the time, it did not. The cars weren't even that great either.
I would love that. Yeah. The music was awesome, but the music was awesome. The music made up for it. Yeah.
It's the whole thing of, when you look back and you go, wow. I would, like all of us, having no clue we would have been a part of a series that was so loved to this day, and how many young people come up to our table, and I'm like, I don't think this is ever going to die. I don't think the group of people who loved it will get to a point where they're gone, and I'm saying we're all going to be gone too, but I go, there's just so many new people that love the show. Yeah. It's crazy, the film.
Yeah.
Well, I think that we
You
said.
were an 80s star.
She was. No, about that. But you know what? I do have to say, feel really fortunate about the iconic films from the 80s that I got to be a part of that all still seem to have a vibrant life so many years later.
Fast Times at Ridgemont.
Yeah.
Silverado.
Yeah.
Nightmare on Elm Street.
Yeah. Better Off Dead.
Better Off Dead.
Powwow Highway, which is like won a bunch of awards, and and then I was in these vampire movies, but they're vampire movies.
The Highlander.
Oh yeah, the Highlander TV series.
Yeah.
But you know, it's been all downhill since. But there was just, I think it was an interesting time because I think now there's such a proliferation of networks and things happening, but we felt really fortunate to be like culled from the herd and given these amazing fun roles to play, and that for whatever reason there was a moment in time that there was that era of movies, be it the romantic comedies or the teen genre comedies or horror, something about them has held on and resonated because I was in a whole bunch of movies in the 90s and nobody's ever seen them. So it's like an interesting thing of whatever that energy was, or the way they were filmed, or something. They just have this beautiful life that still goes in connection, and I would have never thought it was going to happen. It's such a miracle and such a beautiful thing to feel lucky enough.
The nail on the head though is that the movies in the 80s celebrated young people and youth and teenagers in a way that movies never had before. And coming of age, and so the reason that young people, generation after generation, can like really identify with these is that I remember like auditioning for things like Quarterback Princess and Pretty in Pink and all the John Hughes movies. Adventures in Babysitting, like all of those, like they all celebrated like being young. And I think that's why they're so great for anybody, even 40, 30 years later.
Because everybody got to experience I don't know, like people come up and tell the greatest stories about the first time they saw them or the date they were having and how they identified. And I think they use more approachable people in their movies as well than where you could say like, oh, she looks like she lives on my street. And I think there's something, and everything was tactile and practical. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that people were very approachable in films, and you could relate to them. It could be you, whereas today it's exactly. Yeah, you're like, hi, I can't compete with that.
I mean, a lot of the people in the movies, you already know them so well from TNC or People Magazine. You feel like you are familiar with a lot of the actors that you're going to see on Friday night in this series or that sequel.
But everyone in the 80s, it was kind of the first time you were seeing some of these actresses, and you always felt like they were fresh and new people coming. Nowadays, I think one of the biggest problems is that it is kind of the same people over and over again.
Social media, there's no mystery. Like in the 80s, nobody would know anything about us unless they.
Heather Langenkamp was a raging alcoholic.
Yes. Nobody ever found out. No. So not true. I'm totally joking. I kept it under wraps. But now the available information about every actor that you like takes away all the mystery. And then you're watching a celebrity or you're watching a known entity pretend to be something, and it's like scientifically proven that your unconscious doesn't allow you to completely absorb into the experience you're having. And so I think the 80s were the last era where you really stayed much more anonymous, like, other than like what People Magazine and the occasional like news, the occasional arrest. Yeah. Yeah. No. Yeah. Yeah. This is me getting a pedicure, eating a donut, and then then you're supposed to go and be totally lost in their movie, and you're like, oh, it doesn't work.
It is a conflict. It is a conflict.
Well, I want to thank you for taking time out and talk with us today. Put your hands together for Nightmare on Elm Street.
Thank you for coming by. Thank you for coming out. Come visit.
That's gonna be on YouTube tonight. I can't wait to see that.